Hey, so sorry about that. I was on my other page and I was just sitting there waiting and I was like, there's no one here. Hey Simone, how you doing? It's good to see you. It's been a long time. Yeah. How's it going? How you doing? Thank you. Hey Robert. Okay, so I was on my other page. That's why I was like, oh, how you doing, Simone? You have to write me and tell me what's going on. You know, I've been a little out of touch lately. You know, that whole like being gone thing and being like 9 hours. So I was 9 hours ahead. Hey, what's up, Christopher Smith? How you doing? It's good to see you. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be back with y'all, for sure. That's where I was, Robert. I was like, why am I sitting here by myself and nobody loves me? And then I was like, wait, because on this side it said something about stars. And I was like, wait, is this my other page? Yeah, it was the music page. Hey, Michelle. What's up, girl? How you doing? Hey, Lisa. What's up, girl? How you feeling? Yeah, so the trip was amazing, right? Sometimes you just gotta invest in stuff and just be like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. And it was totally worth it. I met so many beautiful, wonderful people and spent some time on the Indian Ocean, which was super cool. And then, yeah, that drive, y'all, on my birthday, it was like, I mean, you know, we talked about like 11 hours. It was really like 13 hours because, you know, we stopped, I feel like we stopped twice. And that was it. What's up, Nina? What's up, girl? How you doing? I was just talking about this trip. So it was wonderful. I mean, so, you know, sometimes things are just years in the making and you don't even know what's going on. But all of these little tiny things have to happen in order for, you know, this next thing to happen, right? And thank you. It's good to be back, for sure. I mean, it's, you know, it's hot as blazes here. It was in the 60s and 70s in Africa. It was absolutely gorgeous. And where I was on the coast, like, so I was in Kibera, and I'm sorry that I can't do the Kosa pronunciation with the click, but I'm not that advanced yet. So Kibera is on the eastern coast. And the place was just stunning. I mean, you know, we were out in the wild, and it's funny, like the things that we have here that you don't even think twice about, like a fire department, right? Yeah, how about that? So, you know, and of course me, I was like, wait, do you all have fires here? Because the landscape is very much the same as it is here. And, you know, Boise was like, no, if we see a fire, then, you know, all the neighbors get together and we put it out. I was like, you know, they're dependent on rainwater that collects in these very elaborate systems from the roof. There's no municipal water, you know, no municipal trash. You take your trash to a dump site. Right. It's crazy. But just so, I don't know, I've really adjusted a lot easier than I thought I would have. I guess I didn't know, you know, I had no idea what I was walking into, which seems to be, you know, kind of the story of my life. But anyway, so the story started back in the 90s, like 96, right? And hey, Alexa, I was walking literally on the street, walking from the Washington Ballet to Starbucks to get myself something in between because I was sleepy. Hey, Raymond. And I ran into this brother on the sidewalk and we're just talking and we, you know, both going to Starbucks. We go in get our drinks, come out, and we're walking back, and I was like, okay, this is me. He was like, oh, this is me too. And I was like, wait, what? No, I work here. He's like, well, I'm here from South Africa because I've been commissioned to write a piece for the company. And so my friend Shauna and I had been commissioned to write a piece the year before. So I was like, wow, next year I really hope that we can write a piece together. And so we wrote a piece together, and it premiered at the Kennedy Center with the Washington Ballet during their season, and then we also went to South Africa at the Wits Theater in Johannesburg, and we did it there. And that whole situation, even getting there, because hey Lisa, so I'm just gonna tell you all the whole story, because it's all these little bits and pieces, and actually I probably don't even know the whole story, right? But so after we met each other, this thing happened. We did the thing at the Kennedy Center. It was happening at the Joyce Center and at the Joyce Ballet Company in New York. And so we had been invited to that. And so we go, and at the end, the head of the ballet was like, yes, and we'll be going to South Africa in a couple of weeks. And I was with my friend Bill Tolles, and he was like, why didn't you, he smacked me, literally. He was like, why didn't you tell me that you were going to South Africa? I was like, because they didn't ask us. And he was like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, this is my first time hearing about it. Y'all, they were trying to be shiesty, right? Shiesty. So we said, well, you're going to walk yourself right up over there to her, and you're going to tell her, yeah, that's not acceptable. You wrote this music, and y'all are the only ones that are not going. What is that? So I walk up to this woman. It's the head of the ballet. And I mean, when I tell you, hey, Gregory Green. She was this very austere, just really elegant woman. I was like, hey, listen, so I'm trying to figure out why we're not going. What is the deal? And she's like, oh, well, we don't have the money. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So the next day, my friend Boise and his manager, Eugenie, and me, Shauna, and Marshall, the other musicians, we all meet up, and Bill. And so we're all sitting there, putting our heads together, okay, how can we make this happen? Because what had happened, they had sent us money for tickets so that all of the musicians could go. And what had happened was the head of the ballet had given our tickets, to people that worked in the company that were not dancers. Right? So Bill was like, well, do you know anybody at the embassy? And I was like, well, we had this gig a couple of weeks ago at the embassy, which was the governor's ball. And so the governor's ball it's the governors of all 50 states, and it's hosted by an embassy in DC. Sean and I had met these two brothers from the continent, and there was this restaurant that they used to frequent. It was a club over in Adams Morgan. Wow. So it was an African club, and the African men would come to this club and do whatever. Well, while they were gone, the club had switched hands, so it belonged to now an American. And so they came in the club, and they were all loud, and I was like, y'all need to shut up from the stage. And they were like, who is this woman talking to us like this? I was like, yeah, you, shut up. You can't see that we're trying to perform here? So anyway, they were just completely stunned. Anyway, so, after they came up to the stage, and they were like, oh, hey, we're sorry, we didn't know what was going on. And they were so funny. But they worked at the embassy, and, so Sean and I got to know their wives and their kids, and we would spend time with them. They were amazing. So Ndamizu and Twigs, and I don't know what Twigs' real name is, but it's like Kosa, and it has 50 syllables, and probably half of those are clicks. Yeah. Anyway, so we had done this gig, and as I was leaving, I had forgotten some things, so I had gone back in, and the ambassador and his wife were standing there, and they were beautiful, just these beautiful, beautiful, tall, graceful people, just beautiful. Ambassador San, and anyway, Mr. and Mrs. San. And as I was walking out, he says, young lady, if there's anything that you ever need, please don't hesitate to call me. So I said, Bill, when I was there, I said, I met the ambassador, and he said if I needed anything to call him. I said, but people say that all the time, but y'all, I called this man, and I was like, hey, listen, so I have this issue, and we did this music for the ballet. The ballet was called Savannah. It's up on YouTube. You can actually find it. And somehow the three of us got left off the roster to go, and our tickets were given away. I don't even think we knew all this at the time. I said, but this woman told me that they didn't have any money. So he listened to me tell the story. And he's, very South African, he said, oh, give me a moment. I'll call you right back. And I was like, okay, cool. Y'all, when I tell you it was probably 5 minutes later, the head of the ballet called me. I'm not saying her name. I'm trying to, not to protect the innocents, but anyway. So she calls me back and she's like, oh, well, we seem to have found the money. And I was like, yeah, I bet you did. Anyway. So we later found out that the trip was being sponsored by BMW North America. So they definitely had the money, and they got the tickets. But then, oh my God, so many things. So we had to relearn this music that we had not played in 2 years. There was all this programming and stuff. Shauna had to get shots. I had just gone to Ghana for the first time. So it was this crazy, stressful thing. But we got it together. We got the visas. We got I had a passport. Shauna had to get her passport. We were taking malaria pills, which, yikes. Malaria pills are the devil. Like, the first time I took them, I cussed everybody out that I knew. It was really a terrible experience. Anyway, so everything happens. We get to South Africa, right? Well, because we were like the last ones to get on the ticket, they had to house us somewhere else. So everybody else was staying in the dorm. And we were staying at this beautiful Airbnb, bed and breakfast, right? It was before Airbnbs. So we stayed in this beautiful place. The first night that we did the show, it was a complete and utter disaster. And the keyboard that I was working with in the States, I just, everybody had them here, so I just assumed that everybody had them there. So I didn't take mine. There were 2 in the country. 2. And one of the guys that owned it was out on the road. The other was the keyboard player with Johnny Clegg and Sabuka. I don't know if y'all remember this, but anyway. And I called him and I was like, listen, I need this keyboard. And he was like, oh, I'm in town. I'll just drop it over. And now that I've been to South Africa, I understand how crazy that whole thing was, that he actually had this and he was in town and he was close enough to bring it over because it's far. So I had the keyboard, then I had to program all the stuff so that we could do it. And then we had to do it with the dancers and everything had to be exact. Anyway, the first night was a disaster. And one of the dancers got dropped because we missed a cue. And so, of course, then the head of the ballet comes and she's all, meh, 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 meh. And I'm like, well, first of all, lady, if you had told us about this, when you knew that you were going a year ago, then perhaps we would have been able to get this together. So Boise and I, the dancer, we're fighting, hey Joelle, and You know, like we had this big knockdown drag out. Anyway, so this was 2000, right? Really before the internet was going, before email, before all of that, which is crazy to think that that's even a thing, right? But especially intercontinental, that was just not a thing. So, 2013, 13 years later, from South Africa, Boise goes to New York to do a gig. And he walks into his Airbnb, and my picture's on the wall. Can't make it up. And so he asked the host, he's like, where is she? I need to find her. And my friend was like, are you a stalker? Because I'm not giving out her information. He was like, we need to call her right now. So they called me. And I was like, oh my God, I have not talked to you in 13 years. So he's like, hey, listen, I have to come back next month to do a piece. And I have no idea what I'm doing. Do you want to do this with me? And I was like, absolutely. And I had written Chariot. And, you know, I sent him a bunch of stuff, and I was like, hey, listen to this. He was like, no, I want to dance to this. So we do this thing at Judson Church in New York. It's just me and him, solo, Chariot. It goes up on YouTube. It's on YouTube for 10 years. 10 years. So at the end of 22, I get this email. You know, because again, like we did that, and then, I mean, just out of touch, right? And you know, we sort of resolved everything. The fact was that we were both super, super young, under a lot of pressure. You know, he's a South African dancer, classically trained, all of that, right? And so he's coming to the States, so there's this huge amount of pressure for him. I'm here, I'm working at the ballet, and then working for the ballet, and anyway. So we do this piece, put it up, it's been on YouTube. I get the call. He's like, hey, listen, this woman in India saw our piece, and she suggested to our friend in Switzerland that we come and do this piece for his last season programming in Basel, which is how I wound up going to Basel last year and taking Riley. So we worked on this piece, and so the piece is, well, if you know my song Chariot, it's about transitions and death and the things that we don't talk about, and the joyous part of knowing that someday that we will all meet again on the other side, right? Because life doesn't stop, it changes forms, and love doesn't stop, it just also sometimes changes forms, but it's still there. Anyway, so he was like, well, do you think you would want to come to Switzerland? I was like, yeah. So we get there, and you know, we've been talking about the songs because it got extended to being a 45-minute piece. Yeah, I get there, and he says, well, you know, I still dance and I still choreograph, but I learned how to play the bass so that I can play this music. And I was like, what? What? He said, well, if I'm not good enough, if you feel like I'm not good enough, it's fine, and my feelings won't be hurt, and it's okay. And I was like, first of all, what? Okay. So of course he was great. Still dancing, you know, but just the music was really great. So anyway, so I get there and I find out, I meet the woman from India. She's this incredible, incredible actress. She does it all, actress, singer, storyteller, all of this. And I said, she said, you know, I saw the piece, and my mother was transitioning, and I watched it every day, and it was a thing that gave me comfort. She's like, that song, Chariot, just gave me so much comfort during this time. And I was like, wow, you never know who's watching or how something that you've made or been inspired to make can change somebody's life. And of course it changed my life just being there and doing the show. We did two shows, and they were both sold out. We had the perfect sound man, one of the best sound men I've ever had. And it was absolutely beautiful. And I mean, everything that could have gone wrong did not go wrong, and it was lovely. And we just sort of talked about it afterwards, like, hey, maybe we should continue to do this piece. And so he had been shopping it, his agent had been shopping it, nobody was really biting. And so Boise called me and he was like, hey, listen, there's a small festival in Durban. He's like, they don't have any money. You know, he said they'll pay you once you're here, but they don't have money for tickets or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I got a little bit of money saved. And, you know, I'm just going to assume that I will be working for the rest of the year. And I won't be, you know, totally flat broke out on the street. So I bought the ticket, y'all. I was like, I'm going to buy the ticket. I didn't know what I was going to do for my birthday. My plan initially was to do this pilgrimage, the Camino across Spain. And I still want to do that this year. I'm still, you know, trying to figure out how to do that. But it came up, and so, you know, I just leaned into it. I leaned into it. And yes, thank you, Robert. Yes, because I will be raising funds. Woo, y'all. Anyway, so, you know, I bought the ticket, and I was just like, I don't know if you have these conversations with yourself, but I was like, can we really afford this? And I was like, wait, can we really afford not to take this opportunity? So I got there, and actually right before I got there, he sent me a message and he was like, hey, listen, we got accepted to a festival in Munich for next year, and they fronted some of the money so I can reimburse your ticket. So I was like, thank God. Anyway, so that's how all of this worked out. Like all of these little tiny fragments of whatever. And I got there, like, okay. The day that I'm leaving, I get an email at 3:30 in the morning from British Airways, right? We are so sorry to inform you. I'm like, that the first flight got canceled. So I was supposed to fly from LAX to Heathrow. Right. That's it. That's all they say. Your flight is canceled, and we're working on, and I'm like, it's 3:30 in the morning. My flight leaves tonight at 7, right? So then I get a message a little bit later, and they're like, oh, well, we've rebooked you on JetBlue, so you'll fly from LAX to JFK. So I flew from LAX to JFK, which is like a 5.5-hour flight. Had a 2-hour layover in JFK. And I was at opposite. I was running through the terminals, like seriously sweating, running through the terminals. So I barely make this flight to Heathrow. So I get on the flight to Heathrow, which is 11 hours. Then Heathrow to Johannesburg, which is another 11 hours. And then a 3-hour flight from Johannesburg to Canberra. Y'all, I was literally in an airport flying in a car for almost 40 hours. And I I slept, those two 11-hour flights, I slept probably like 9 hours. I was knocked out. And then I get there, and you know, I'm so excited. I get picked up at the airport, and I'm like, oh my God, like we're flying in, and I'm seeing the water, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually here. And so we land, and we're driving along the coast. I'm I'm like, this is the most beautiful place. And, you know, I didn't even think about it being on the Indian Ocean. I was thinking, you know, I just hadn't thought about it. And I'm like, oh my God. So I've been on the Pacific, the Atlantic, and now the Indian. The only one left is the Arctic. So anyway, it's absolutely beautiful. And we drive to the house, and we're standing in the kitchen, me and Boise and his friend Yaukia, who's from the Netherlands. And the house just like totally, like there's a wave, right? And I'm like, oh my God. So I get here and we're having an earthquake. And so Boise says, you know, it feels like when I was a kid and we lived, he's from Soweto, and he said it feels like when I was a kid and they would fly the bomber jets really low to scare us. And I was like, okay, that is crazy town right there. But, so we Google it, and of course, you know, somebody had a camera out. So a meteor had hit, right? My first day there, and I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of magical already. So yeah, that was day one, and then, you know, he was like, hey, is it too early to work? And I was like, see, this is why you are my people. And I was like, it is not too early to work. So we just sort of mapped out what was going on, and Yaukia made us, she is an incredible chef and just, you know, cooked, and we were just out in the country, and I ate outside every day, you know, breakfast and lunch, actually breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just outside. There's like a field, a meadow. And I was like, why don't I eat outside at home? Oh, because it's 150 degrees, right? But yeah, so it was beautiful. And, you know, I walked the land and then, you know, almost fell in a hole. And I was like, okay, clearly I can't do my walking here. But I walked, he has a studio, so I just walked, you know, got my 5 miles in the studio, just walking with my headphones on. And then we went to the beach. And it was a little late in the season for whales or dolphins. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll see whales or dolphins. But I didn't get to see those the entire time I was there, which was kind of a drag. But you know what? It'll be fine. Right, right, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, what can I do now? I mean, oh, people should watch out, right? So then the next morning, I woke up early. I mean, okay, so I was like, if I get to stay up until 9:30, then I'll be okay, and then I'll sleep. So I stayed up actually till about 10 o'clock. I woke up at about 6:30. I mean, I literally slept the entire time. I did not move. I was in the same position I was when I woke up. I found this wonderful sleep mask. And you can actually, it's got Bluetooth, so you can actually put music in it too, but I didn't. It was just, anyway. So I wake up and I go to the bathroom, and I look out the window, and there's a tree, and these 2 monkeys were playing in the tree, and I was like, holy shit, we have monkeys. So of course, you know, I'm like, so I just stood there fascinated. I didn't even get my camera. And I was like, oh my God, what if they don't come back? But later, we went out and we walked, and he just showed me like the land, and we were out in the middle of numfuck Nairobi. I mean, nothing, just out, y'all. Like, we had neighbors, but you had to walk to see them. And so we were just standing there, and then this cow just came out of nowhere and was like, yo, what's up? And then we walked to the back, and there were monkeys. And when I tell you, the trees were full of monkeys. I mean, and they were just, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, the trees were just like shaking, and they were just having such a great time, and they were playing, and Boise was like, yeah, but I don't want them to get too close or too comfortable, because you know me, I was like, oh my God, they're gonna come over here and be like, hey girl, what's up? So, you know, of course he had a slingshot, and I was like, I need a slingshot. I said, where'd you get your slingshot? He said, I bought it on the street. I was like, wonder if I could just get one. But then I was like, yeah, I could just see them stopping me in customs like, ma'am, what are you doing? Anyway, and then we had a couple of, wonderful rehearsals, and, it was just the two of us, and he's playing bass, and I'm like, you're playing bass. And crazy enough, I didn't even play guitar. The first time we met, I didn't play guitar. Back in, 98 when we met, I was like, I didn't play guitar. So it was this really interesting playing music with somebody that I used to just play music for in another form, and he was just dancing, but now, yes, perfect. So, and I mean, Judson holds a really special place in my heart, the church. I see Robert's posting it. Judson Church is where I used to work with this woman, Aziza. And Aziza had a dance troupe called the Deaf Dance Jam, and half of the kids were hearing and half of them were deaf. And so it was really an exercise in teaching them how to be tolerant of each other. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, I look back on my life and some of these experiences that I totally forgot, because I had totally forgotten about that. I was like, no, I used to work at this church with these beautiful human beings. Anyway, so we rehearsed for a couple of days, and it was really cool. And then the percussionist showed up, Mandla, and at first he was very, very quiet. Very typically, South Africans generally are they're very quiet, and they're very reserved, and I'm like loud and American. I know. But anyway, so he came and he was super quiet and just really a very gentle spirit. And at first, I wasn't quite sure. I was like, I don't know if he's gonna like the music. I don't know if he's gonna feel it. Of course, he just fit right in. And so we then spent the rest of the week, the three of us sort of rehearsing, and Yalkia just cooking and making sure that we're all okay. And I was sleeping in this really beautiful blue room, which was my favorite, and it was perfect. And he told me, he said, it's cold here. It's the end of winter, so it's cold. And he said it's not necessarily cold outside, but it's cold in the house. So I made sure I had like sweaters and stuff, and it was perfect. And then we just watched the music just grow, and then we left. We left on my birthday, and we drove from the East Coast to the South Coast. We were all up in the mountains, and there's a new moon, so I'm watching, and I've had this experience before where the moon is there and the sun is coming up in the desert. Actually, I was in Palm Springs. Again, another one of those magical moments. I did this film with a friend of mine, and Shonda Rhimes screened it at her place. And so I had to leave the after party because I was going to be an assistant producer, this is so crazy, for a video being shot at Richard Carpenter's house in the desert because his grandson was doing a music video. So I got to play on his piano, which is really amazing. But as I was driving, I had to, I came from LA, I got home around midnight, dropped my stuff, slept for about 3 hours. I left at 3:30, got some gas, and as I was sitting at Costco, I'm driving out, and then around 5 o'clock, the sun starts to come up. So in the back is a full moon, in the front is the sun coming up, and I'm driving through the desert, and it's all golden and beautiful. So we left at 4 a.m., and it was pitch black, and then all of a sudden we see the new moon, right? And then a couple hours in, because Boise was like, we gotta drive before before the sun comes up, so that we can get there before the sun is down and have at least a couple hours of light. So we drove for 13 hours, and about halfway through, about the 6-hour mark, we stopped, and they had gotten a chocolate cake and some tea that I really love, and some nougat, which I normally hate, but this was it was so good. So we're in a rest stop, and there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken there, which, so random. And they're singing Happy Birthday, and they're like, no, we have to now sing it in Xhosa. And I'm like, okay. I'm in Africa for my birthday at a rest stop, and they're singing Happy Birthday. This is like the coolest thing ever. So of course we get back in the car, we drive, and we make it to Durban, and we had been inland for a long time, and then all of a sudden the coast is just there, and it's beautiful, right? And Durban is much more populated than Kibera. There's, it was like us and the monkeys and a few locals, and it's kind of it. But we get to Durban, and we get to the hotel, and I had looked at the hotel online. I was like, oh, this is cute. But I was on the 7th floor. There's a street, and then there's like a sort of a grove, and then the beach is right there. So the first night, I was so tired, and I fell asleep, and I left the air on, and I hadn't slept with air conditioning, and I woke up, and I was all, So the next night, I was like, well, maybe I could just open the window. And so I opened the window for the rest of the week and listened to the ocean as I was falling asleep, which was quite lovely. And we went to KwaZulu-Natal, which is the university there. And my new friend, Tuli, was there, and she introduced us to the two singers, which are her young students, Cindy and Zibu, and they were first-year students in music, which was really amazing. And sometimes when you send people your music, they don't learn it, and I have a lot of background vocals, and these women had been practicing for months. They had met with Boise over Zoom and worked on the music remotely, which was really, really difficult. So it was the first time that we were all in the room together. And Mandla is actually from Durban, but he flew to Kibera, and then we all drove. So it was 4 of us driving. Well, I didn't drive. I was like, I'll drive on the other side of the road. I'm not there yet. I'm a driver, and I love to drive, but I was a little intimidated, and yeah. Sometimes the South Africans drive really fast. And the lanes are kind of there, but not really designated. It's kind of like, you're on your own. That's the thing. That is the thing that I learned. You are on your own. Nobody's coming, so you need to take care of yourself. Don't do any dumb shit, because, Anyway, so we get there, we do the first rehearsal, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, this music is so beautiful coming out of these mouths. It just took on a whole different meaning. And we were doing, so the pieces, as I said, it's on death and dying and transitions and Alzheimer's. Boise's mother had Alzheimer's and passed away several years ago as well. But just all of the emotional stuff, and all of the stuff around death that we don't celebrate death as much. I mean, we celebrate babies being born, and we celebrate weddings and anniversaries and those sorts of things. But I think the thing about Chariot is that it is a really celebratory piece. I mean, it's about really just whatever the next chapter is, right? And the transition, and of course there's sadness, but I feel like there's a lot less sadness if you really engage with people while they're here. Or maybe there's more sadness, I don't know. But the piece is just about that. It's about our humanity around death and life and intertwining all of that. And Boise also, which I didn't know, he's an extraordinary writer as well. So he had written this text to go along with the music and the dance, and then there are screens from which the singers were reading part of it, he was reading part of it. We had added in some whispers, and so it was, started with Chariot, No Regrets, The One, Inner Redemption, which I never do, but it was so nice to do that, and then a scaled down version of Chariot, and then finally we ended with Breathe. And it was wonderful. I had such a good time. And then I got to go teach a master class, and I don't even know how this one happened. The kids from the university were there, and I knew that was going to happen, but there's a new performing arts school down the street that opened. It's an international performing arts school. They opened in March, and their teachers brought them over. And so I'm sitting in a room. I figured maybe 5 or 6 students would come. There were 30 of us in there. And so I had planned to, I had all these plans about teaching these kids how to connect to the music and blah, blah, blah. The first young man opened his mouth with a song from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Code. And I was done. I was like, oh my God, I'm done. I don't even know how I'm going to get through the rest of it. When I tell you, I was on the verge of tears pretty much the whole time I was there. Just those tears of joy and gratitude, right? And again, so I went through, I got to listen to all 30 of these kids sing. And then, oh, no, yes, you must go. So, yeah, so I got a chance to really, they didn't have to learn my music, but they had learned Breathe. So I was about to finish up, and they were like, somebody said, can we sing Breathe? Because we learned it. And I was like, what do you mean you learned it? Well, we saw you were coming, and so we did the research, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. So hearing this, this whole choir of students. And so we had done the first night, but the students came the second night, and so they sang at the end when we were doing it. It was magical. People were breathing and doing it, and it was really amazing. Okay, listen, so here's what I'm going to say to you, Najib, and anyone else, right? If you believe it, and you really want it, and you think about it, and you say no to all the other stuff, right? Anything can happen. I mean, there's no way. I mean, what are the odds, right? What are the odds that I met somebody on the street, had a conversation, wound up, premiering a ballet at the Kennedy Center and the Woods Theater, and then not seeing him for 10 years, and then, my picture's on a wall in New York, and then we get to work together, and then Malika in India sees it, and, we do this piece, and then now this. And now we've been accepted in Munich, and we're looking at some other things too, and hopefully some things on the side. And of course, getting back, I mean, now that I've sort of made some connections and have the desire, right? I mean, what I would love to do is for a group of us to just go and hang out. But I mean, the last time I went, so the first time that I went. When we did the ballet, so then they were like, oh, we have this extra money, do you guys want to go on safari? And I'm like, oh wait, so you didn't have the money to bring us, but now we can all go on safari? Shiesty. Anyway, we went on safari in Pilanesberg in the Kruger National Park. I hadn't even thought about going on safari when we went, and it was, again, magical, mystical. They take you out, and you go out at night, like at dusk, and it's on the savannah, and they take you to the watering hole, and all the animals come to the hole at night, right? They come to drink. The first thing we saw was a pride of lions, just the females, and their cubs, and our tour guide turns off the truck, and all we could hear was the purring of these animals, right? It was so loud and so beautiful. Then we got charged by an elephant that was in estrus, and that was one of the scariest moments ever. Like, we were all like, and Trevor, the guide, was like, "Ew, don't move, don't talk." And I'm like, "Are you serious right now? I can barely breathe." And so then the driver like just hauled backwards, and Trevor had the tranquilizer gun just in case, and the elephant was like, "Wow, I'm coming for you." You know, so we're in this truck, it's open, it's like a really tall truck, and the sides are open, and his face is like right here. It was a moment, but we made it out. Anyway, I would love to take a group of folks to just go, and of course, you know, I'm always trying to figure out ways to build community here and there and just have magical experiences. I mean, it was magical. It was really, really, hey, Miss Eleanor, it was really, really magical. So I say all that to say, if there's something you want to do, there's nothing stopping you. If you can dream it, you can do it. And I know people will be like, "Oh, that's crazy, you're traveling by yourself? What? Why are you here alone?" Okay, the best thing, I went to one of the airport lounges. This is like my new thing. I've learned how to do this, right? So I go, and there was a guy in there, he was like, "Are you traveling alone?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, not anymore, because now I'm here to take care of you and, you know, bring you stuff to drink and eat." And I was like, yes. Because I guess, you know, people don't see a lot of women traveling by themselves, you know, and of course, I don't really, I mean, I stood out like an American, like, and it's, especially when I open my mouth, I mean, obviously. But, yeah, I mean, it just, I can't recommend it enough. The ticket to get there is a lot, right? But once you get there, it's definitely doable. I didn't wear earrings for 2 weeks. I didn't watch, because apparently there's a lot of crime. When I went last year, one of the cab drivers was like, yeah, he's like, you know, just don't look like a tourist. Don't have your phone out, because the biggest theft is phones. You know, in the cities, you just have to be careful, like you do here, right? It's not any different, and people are definitely people, but there's so much curiosity. I think I'm super curious by nature, and I have like a million questions, as did they, which was really nice, and some really deep questions about life and death, and what I thought about that, and what the music was about, and what the text was about, and how did this come to be, and you know, 30 years in the making, right? It's just sort of astonishing and crazy, and obviously went way before that, you know, for all of those little things too. Oh yay, I'm so glad. I mean, okay, so I guess on Thursday we'll be doing the Sergio Mendes. I'll probably do maybe a song or two. But yeah, I highly, you know me, I highly recommend traveling anywhere. Just get outside of your own skin, right? There's so much to see, and so much to learn and figure out, and you know, the world is an incredibly big place. And when I was in the airport on, I don't know which one, I think I was in Heathrow, and I was looking at the marquee, and there were places I had never heard of on the marquee, and I was like, yeah, you might need to travel a little bit more even. But I was so excited that y'all were watching, and I felt like you were with me, because at first I was like, I'm not gonna be out here videoing stuff and doing stuff. But after the first thing, oh, and then Monla was so funny, because after I was videoing him because I wanted to learn how to make it, right? And just the time that he was taking with the mustard seeds, and he's like, no, you have to put them in the oil and let them pop, and then that's where the flavor comes from, and then you add this, and you add this, and you add the chili, the curry powder, but if you add hot, then you can add some mild too, really for the flavor, and just sort of, and I was like, this is great. And I can't believe how many people were watching that. And then, he was like, wait, you're filming? And I was like, yeah, and because a lot of people are like, ew, don't film me, don't film. He was like, you're filming it? Oh, well, let me show you how to make pop. And I was like, what's pop? What is that? Glorified grits, right? He was like, oh no, you never put sugar on this. I was like, I know that. But just, Africa it was definitely my happy place. It's funny, like, I was in Cleveland earlier this year too. And then I was down in San Diego in Oceanside at the beach. And I think really anywhere with water, Cleveland is on one of the Great Lakes, and you can't see across to the other side, and it was super peaceful. I don't know, just being at peace almost anywhere, and being in Nashville. Nashville's my happy place too. I think the world is mostly my happy place. I love it here too when it's not on fire in 115 degrees. What is the irony of being in Africa, right? And it's in the 60s and 70s, and which is perfect weather for me. And then coming home, I was like, it's so hot. It's so hot. But yeah, I'm happy to be home, and I know that I'll be processing all of this for a while. There's a song that I had started writing right before the pandemic. Literally right before. And it was almost finished, and when I got there, I was like, wait, this is exactly what I was describing, the beach with no safety rails and the ocean. Yeah. So new music alert. It's definitely coming. Millie was super happy to see me. When I called the dog sitter, she's so funny because she hears me on the phone and she gets super excited. Like, I can hear her just barking. So, she's been super clingy the last 2 days, and we've been inside because of the fire. Like, I've just been outside enough to water, and, I went to get groceries, regular stuff today, after just magic. So, listen, if y'all enjoy that, I'm gonna start doing the whole travel log thing every time I go, because it's always fun to have you along. And I felt like y'all were there, seriously. I felt my parents there too, my brother. It was really, a couple things happened where I was like, oh yeah, okay, y'all are definitely here and enjoying. The food was incredible, which is always helpful. And somebody was talking about how terrible, the food is in England and British Airways. Listen, shout out to British Airways, because they served Indian food, and it was good. It was really, they did like a chicken tikka masala that was really good, and some sort of mushroom prosciutto pasta that was, I was like, y'all, I forgot that, they actually used to serve food on planes here. It was always trash, but it was really good. So I had a great time. Okay, wow. I've been talking for almost an hour. It's 5:57. So, you know what? I think I'm just going to save the whole Sergio Mendes thing, which is good, because there's a couple songs that I really want to work on and do better. So maybe I'll just do Lean Into Love, Big Into Love. Love will continue if you just remember to fight for the things that bring joy and contentment. Kill the resentment, lay down your gun, surrender, arm yourselves for the fight of your lives, and lean in. lean into love, begin to love. Love will continue if you just remember to fight for the things that bring joy and contentment. Kill the resentment, lay down your gun, surrender, arm yourselves for the fight of your lives. Lean in, lean in. Alright, y'all. I can't believe it's 6 o'clock. Anyway, I love you. I'll see you on Wednesday on late night. Thursday night back here, regular time. Same bad time, same bad channel. Y'all know what to do, right? And arm yourselves for the fight of your lives. Lean in. I love y'all too. It's a really good time. I'm gonna try to get some sleep tonight. I've not really slept for the last 2 nights. I've been cranky, slightly mean. Only slightly. And only to people who deserve it. Anyway, I love y'all. I'll see you Wednesday. If I don't see you Wednesday, I'll see you Thursday. Get some sleep. Lean in. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you came out. I'll see y'all later.